What is going on, everybody? 'Tis I, the enigma of the gun airwaves, Miyanovich, welcoming you to Season 3 of the Liberal Gun Owners Lens podcast, where unprecedented perspectives are packed into the cargo hold for the LGO Lens spaceship Voyagio.
That's fucking Italian.
Don't believe that evolution is possible with guns and public safety in America? It's already happening, y'all. Minds are evolving. Think guns versus public safety is the only game in town, do ya? Think culture war is the big boss, do ya? Then keep your ass in the past. Everyone else, all aboard! So now that we've talked about that a little bit, I want to ask you a question. How did you get into guns? Like, how does Will Anderson come to guns?
Trump.
And cut. So like 2016 Trump or 2020 Trump?
2016 Trump.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had what I call the martial alarm. Like, you had an existential alarm.
Fear.
Go off. Fear.
Yeah.
Self-defense. Yeah. Defense of kith and kin and self.
Yeah.
Okay. Good answer. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Like, put some words to that. Like, you feel like he represents the pebbles that can start an avalanche of like, fascistic.
Yeah. There were a lot of, it's kind of funny because some of the things that people were saying that sounded hyperbolic back in 2017 are now sound relatively tame compared to what's going on. But, you had somebody come out and just run an openly racist and xenophobic campaign. And on some level, I thought, this guy is kind of beyond the pale. He's not going to win. And then he got elected. And all of a sudden I'm feeling like, maybe I'm not as welcome here as I thought I was. And there were a couple little things. There was actually a regional white nationalist conference that got held probably about 4 blocks from the house that we were living in at the time.
Okay.
I had some guy, pull his truck over and start shouting racial slurs at me while I was like walking down the street in the city with my wife. There were a couple guys in the neighborhood who had a truck that they were flying Confederate flags from and driving around and randomly harassing, mostly women of color. So there were a couple incidents, but I kind of thought, And then also on some level it was, and at that point I was a very strong proponent of gun control, probably to the point that I would make Shannon Watts blush, and at that point after Trump won, I was like, well, none of this stuff's going to happen if you can't beat him showing them.
Well, I think, we're dealing with a much more ancient part of our consciousness when we get into this place. And the only way that it happens for a person who goes on through this road is you actually have to finally see what humans are, or what humans are really capable of through the negative.
Yeah.
And that fear is in there for a reason. It's in there for a reason. But it's not for those of us that are perhaps more intellectual and more further forward in the prefrontal cortex. We don't really have this experience with the basal ganglia really driving ancient messages to us about existence and survival and protection. And we don't really have that.
Yeah.
And so it really takes a good slap, to your egg for you to go, oh shit.
Yeah.
And then the other part of your brain turns on, and then it's not such an easy topic.
Yeah.
Right. I think most people that I've had on the podcast, most of the liberals from our community have had something similar. And I always say that unless a person has seen it in the eyes of another person, like there are some humans, they don't really care what you say, and they don't care what you think, and what they're going to do to you, or what they're going to do is what they're going to do. And a lot of people don't have any clue what it's like to be on the other side of that. But once you are, in one way or another, the whole world changes in terms of perspective. So, like many other liberals, we have our strong suit. We're filled with hope, and we have great ideals for progress. But the problem is those ideals project, and they make a kind of a false reality a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And it gets broken, and we come to realizations.
Yeah. But yeah, after that, so Trump got elected. So there was election day, and I actually went and did an ultrasound course in Portland that following weekend. And I had taken that Monday off just to give me a day off to recover from the drive or whatever, because I drove back that Sunday night. And then that Monday I went down to Seattle Police Headquarters and filled out the application for a concealed pistol license, and signed up for an introductory firearms course, kind of basic safety and marksmanship fundamentals, and then I had fun.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh yeah, this shit's fun.
Yeah, it is.
And
it is.
And then I started reading, and I actually started reading. I read a couple books that kind of started changing my perspective on gun ownership, and that it's not just kind of the conservative racist white guy stereotype, and then also actually I read a book. It was like Gun Guys by Dan Baum. Are you familiar with that one?
I'm not familiar with it. No,
I read that one, and This Nonviolent Stuff Will Get You Killed.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, you know that one?
I know, but I don't. But I like the title.
Oh, you should. Yeah, you should check that out. It's
okay.
Great book. But it kind of talks a lot about looks at it from a civil rights standpoint, and
well, in my background is I spent a lot of years studying Buddhism and Tibet. I studied with the Tibetans for a number of years. The school was the Drukung Kagyu. So I studied Buddhism and practiced Buddhism for a lot of years, and was involved in a lot of adherence to like nonviolent principles. I was always into martial arts, and always realized that physical confrontation, fighting violence, that's always a part of it. So I never really fully adhered to Eastern nonviolence, but I was around it and inside of it a lot. And you learn a lot. And one of the things that I learned is, we have a tendency since the 1960s, we've had a tendency in progressive culture to worship Oriental culture and in terms of spirituality. And in certain, subcultures inside of the progressive reality, it's like these Oriental philosophies can do no wrong, and they're perfect because they're not Christianity. Because they're not Christianity, they're mystical and amazing, and they're all encompassing and perfect. And they really aren't. Once you're inside of them and you study and you're around other, I was around a lot of teachers, a lot of gurus, you see there's a lot of bullshit, and they're wrong about a lot. And one of the things that they're wrong about is the use of force, the use of the positive violence. They're wrong about that. So we come from a culture, you and I, liberal progressive culture, where that goes on. That continues. It's really hard to get through to liberals and progressives often that this is a viable moral part of reality, because the whole ethos of the liberal progressive reality is lesser people engage in guns, lesser people engage in violence as a solution. That's for lesser people. Greater people are against guns. Greater people are against even the conception of positive violence. So it's really hard to get through to people unless they have some sort of a big ass awakening where they get the shit scared out of them. And essentially,
society has a long and storied tradition of responding violently to people who try to organize nonviolently for change.
Sure.
On some level, and you see stories about this, and it's something that kind of gets omitted from the history, from, for example, the civil rights movement, where people who when they talk about people who were armed, they'll talk about the Black Panthers, for example, and just kind of paint them as these extremist outliers. But, almost everyone who was anyone, at least was supportive of the right to armed self-defense. And to some degree, there were people behind the scenes who wanted to have that capacity simply as a deterrent to create safe space for people to organize and advocate for their rights.
I don't know if you know who Chad King is, but Chad's the president of the Black Bottom Gun Club in Detroit. And I'm friends with Chad, and he's been on the podcast a number of times. And, these are things that we've talked about, like full enfranchisement, with all rights. And this is a process that African Americans are really only going through right now. In my opinion, they're only really, really going through it right now. The Black community, not all of it, but certainly a measurable portion of it is turned on now to self-defense.
Yeah.
Through everything, through every means. And, it's very, very important. I have studied guns deeply for a decade now and started off with the anthropologic relationship between humans and projectiles. And that's a never-ending phenomenon in every society we create. We take weapons with us, we create them, we maintain them, and we advance them. But we particularly do that with projectiles. So, this is not different. Like what is happening in society with guns right now is not different. It's everywhere. It's all over the planet. All societies have guns going on in one way or another. But I bring that up because every type of society or human group, in order for them to succeed, they have had to go through this. They have to engage with projectiles as a part of their operation. And if you look at women or African Americans or the gay community, they haven't, as subcultures, haven't really gone through it. As a subculture, they haven't gone through it. And everyone else has been allowed to do it.
Yeah.
White men have been allowed to do it. But now that Black people are doing it, or that women want to do it, or that gay people are doing it, it's like a problem, right? Except every successful anthropologic tribe and group has gotten a chance to do it.
Yeah.
Now, just now in America in the 21st century, gay people, Black people, marginalized people in general, women are getting their chance to do it. So it's not weird. It's anthropologically appropriate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating. It's important because what you're doing when you do that is you're saying, well, no, you're not allowed to just roll over me. I'm going to fucking kill you if you do that. Right?
Yeah.
Like you're actually giving yourself the opportunity to say that when almost every other Homo sapien in existence was allowed to say that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a rough time. We're somewhat apocalyptic. I think I don't think apocalypse means what most people think, but I do think we're in an apocalypse right now. It's in a paradigm shifting reality. And these phases are fucking dangerous and unpredictable and weird. And so it makes sense to me why people are doing this. I tell people, I look at the future, and whether it's the digital effects on our psyches, the climate, right? All these meta things that are happening to us. If you send your kids or yourself or your grandchildren into the future without knowing how to use a rifle, you're out of your mind. You are we might not need it, but you best not. Like, can they change a spark plug? Do they know how to make money and get different streams of income? Do they know how to use a rifle? Like, you best. So are you, how's the reaction been around you to Will now does guns?
Kind of okay. I don't know. My wife is not a fan. She's okay with me doing it.
Sure.
She still overwhelmingly, associates it with a certain with a certain type. It probably took about 2 years before she became convinced that I wasn't going to turn to a Republican. But actually, she might be a little more curious than she lets on.
Gotcha.
for example, I don't talk about gun stuff unless I'm around people who I know will be receptive, or I'm in those kind of settings.
Yeah.
But she's outed myself. She's outed me to some of the neighbors. We actually both applied for carry permits at the same time, and she renewed hers. So I figure she hasn't really ruled it out, but I still can't get her to go to the range with me.
Is her having a carry permit also Trump?
Yeah.
That's interesting. So, God, I just had a couple questions. I was going to say, in terms of you as a black man, what our experience has been is it's pretty tough in the black community sometimes because, there's a history of intense internecine violence in black communities. There's a lot of, really heavy focus on guns in the black community, inner city black community. And so it's almost as if when you're a black man, if you become enlightened, what that means is you become anti-gun because you associate gun usage with black crime and how white people see that. So, that's also a major hindrance often in a black man is getting past the whole, all I see with guns are black people killing other black people. And that's not good for me. That's bullshit. Right?
Yeah. That was definitely something I grew up with. So I grew up in North Jersey, about 15 miles outside of New York City. And, back then, growing up in the 80s, New York was a much more dangerous place than it is now. Yeah. So you hear about all this, stuff in terms of crime. And then in terms of my personal family, we had people across the gamut in terms of, socioeconomic backgrounds, and some people kind of getting into some stuff that they shouldn't. And then also just, unless you're a hunter, there's there's not really any gun culture that you're going to be exposed to. There's nothing kind of normative about gun ownership. It's you're either a cop or you're doing something you're not supposed to.
Right.
And so, that's kind of what it is. And so just kind of moving past that. But interestingly, I don't think any of the men in my family are particularly anti-gun. Like
you've discovered
all my cousins are into it. Yeah.
Okay. So was this like hiding underneath the leaves a little bit, and then you got into guns, and then the leaves sort of blew away, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, like these dudes in my family actually do guns.
Yeah. Well, I know one of my, a couple of my cousins, one's in the military, but they both, moved down to North Carolina, when they were teenagers. And, I know one of them, he's been carrying for a long time. Yeah. Kind of stupidly brought his gun to New Jersey, which wasn't a good idea. But
no. It's, once we can use this interesting thing called the internet, you find that it's not quite as isolated and minimized as you would think.
Yeah.
It's just that we don't say a lot, right? And people might not be really, really into it as a hobby, or they might not even own guns, but they're not against it as much as one would think.
Yeah.
Right. We got, just for years, we would have people come into the Facebook group and be like, I thought I was the only one. And then you just wait a day, and then somebody comes in and goes, I thought I was the only one. And no, it's actually it is normative, for in all subcultures, but it's the other thing that's normal is not being into guns. That's the other thing that's super normal.
Yeah.
Both are normal, right?
And there are people in the gun community who don't get that.
Yeah.
And and that bothers me as well.
It's okay. Both are okay. Both are normal. As a matter of fact, more people on the planet are not into guns than people are into guns. So it's more normal to not be into guns. But the idea that liberals don't do guns is just bullshit, obviously.
Yeah. There's a lot of, I think there's this prevailing framing that I think is I don't know if I want to call it inaccurate or dishonest, but it doesn't help. And it, there's, this kind of idea that if you're a gun owner, if you're into guns, if you support the right to bear arms, then you have to kind of have all these other beliefs as well. But also just, if this is a totem of your team, or, it makes it more difficult to have conversations about it, because it just feeds into the overall political polarization, especially in this day and age. So like, it's kind of funny. There's a guy who I'm friends with on Facebook, and he's, he was like a normie Democrat, and then he got into guns, and now he's like gone full MAGA.
I know exactly about that kind of guy, but go ahead.
But he lives in Portland, so he still has like liberal Facebook friends, and he'll go on these listen, liberal rants or whatever. Something happens, just lecturing people. It's like, that really doesn't help. Like, that's not going to win people over if that's what you're trying to do. I mean, maybe you're just trying to dunk on people, but
that somebody is ultimately weak-minded if they make a shift that's that fucking crazy. Like, you can't think for yourself. You immediately just slide into and get affected by the worst repetition inside of a culture, the worst informational repetition, and you become it.
Yeah.
To me, that's always a sign of immaturity in people. Like, there's no like, oh yeah, I feel like I'm a little bit more conservative than I was 20 years ago, is a reasonable move. When people slide from like Democrat to MAGA, something else is going on there.
Yeah. And I mean, if you took the Republican Party of 3 or 4 decades ago that still had a liberal wing, I might be a Republican now, but it's not it's not really the case.
No. So are you doing I know you go sometimes with the group with Dave Buck out to the shooting spot. I don't want to say too much about it.
Yeah.
The shooting spot you guys go to.
Yeah.
You do that regularly? Are you doing other things? Are you trying to get to the range when you can? Are you doing any training or?
So I do a little bit of that. I haven't really shot much lately. Our cat's been sick, and I've just been kind of playing nurse to the kitty, but she's getting better, though. I'll probably try and get out a little bit more over the holidays. But doing some range stuff, got into competition shooting a couple years ago, and that's a lot of fun. I suck, but I still have fun.
Sure.
I'm gradually sucking less, and trying to be more consistent in terms of dry fire practice. I need to get out to the range more in non-match scenarios. But for now, if I do go to matches, I'm really doing it more as just to have fun and trying to use it more as a training exercise. And you definitely, it's one of the few opportunities, especially because a lot of people don't have access to a place where they can move and shoot.
Yep.
Unless so it's an opportunity where you can do that. You can move and shoot and engage multiple targets and reload and, use your holster, things that a lot of, ranges don't allow you to do, especially if you're just kind of stuck there in an indoor range, sitting there in a, in a lane, shooting it from 10 yards away, besides, spending $500 or $600 for a weekend class.
Yeah.
But I've done the class thing. I've taken a couple carbine classes, taken a bunch of handgun classes. For now, I'm trying to get better with pistol shooting, and that's kind of taken up most of my bandwidth at this point.
Sure.
I have a couple rifles that have been collecting dust for most of the year. I took a bunch of classes last year. Took a carbine class, and then I took 3 competition classes, probably within the space of probably about 4 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
And it was too much. I mean, it was good. I had a lot of fun, but also I think once you kind of get the basics of marksmanship and safe gun handling, I think a lot of the class thing really is having someone point out what your most glaring problems are and giving you advice on how to fix it.
Yeah.
And then you have to go home and you have to do your homework and at least make some progress on the things that you're worst at before you can get more out of going back.
Yes.
So this year I just took off. Didn't do any classes, still went to matches, tried to get more consistent with dry fire. And over the past couple months kind of going to matches, I'm trying to approach it from a standpoint of I'm using it as a training exercise and say, okay, this is, this fundamental thing is what I want to concentrate on, this time, whether it's, my grip or, trying to remain target focused. And now I'm starting to see some concrete progress. And so I'm going to go back and do the class thing next year. There's, Tim Herron's going to be doing a 2-day course at a range that's about a half hour from me. So I signed up for that in July and try and do some stuff in between.
You're staying more active than most gunners, man, and that's great. I have learned more than I'll ever be able to practice or use. You get to a point where you've taken so many fucking classes. And each teacher has their own level of nuance and their own way of handling the nuance. That it's just like, I can't keep up with the fundamentals, let alone these other things. So what I've learned is that, using classes to brush up or maybe to have fun occasionally, to get a little bit of spark of something new is great. But in terms of shooting, everything is, especially for people who live real lives that don't live on a range.
Yeah.
It is grip and rip and meat and potatoes. That, if you're not gripping and ripping and meat and potatoes, you're wasting time. So what are the things that I can do to keep me connected to the fundamentals of the gun is just get out there, get stuck into it and just rip shots. Don't get crazy and put your hour in and, and then make your notes. Well, what do I need to do? I've lost this feel. I used to have this. Now I don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
How do I get back to that? Instead of going to another dude and buying another book and more videos.
Yeah.
But that the realm of, especially the pistol, because to me, the carbine is always more intuitive. I haven't touched my rifle for a year, grabbed it, sighted it in, went out, and it's everything does what it's supposed to do intuitively. You cannot do that with a pistol. It's so perishable. Yeah. You lose so much if you don't stay on top of practice with a pistol.
Just simple act of pointing the gun at the target.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you have a carbine and load ready and you bring it up, you're there.
Yes. Yeah. We have, I argue we have 300,000 years of Homo sapien genetic relationship to the projectile and seeing things and lining your hands up with the thing it's all there for us, but it displays itself quite well with the rifle. Not so much with the pistol. No. It's a little weirder.
Yeah. You got to go fish for that, especially with red dots, and where you don't, if you don't have the irons that you're co-witnessing with, then you're really fishing. And
yep, yeah, and you lose it if you don't push out, if you don't punch out thousands of times every year.
Yeah,
you lose it, man. But if you put your reps in, you will push that gun out. It'll be flat. And your dot or your irons will 95% be where they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
But if you're not pushing out 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 times a year, you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
So that's why when people are like, I bought a gun, but I don't really practice. I'm like, you're not really going to be saving lives. And people are like, I'm scared about whatever. And that's why I have a gun. Well, if you're not punching a gun out, even dry firing at home,
at least do it at home.
Yeah. Yeah. I've the vast majority of my presentation and work from the holster is at home.
Yeah.
And it makes a giant difference.
Oh yeah.
It makes it's like if the gun becomes a part of your intuitive workings. And then when you go do live fire, like I have a range, a shooting lane, a pistol lane of fucking 100 yards from where I'm sitting right now in the woods. So the combination of having that and being able to just do reps over and over again in the house, fantastic. I'm in a great position relative to most people. Yeah. But I got a chance to learn that. I don't have to go out there and take all the reps out there. Nobody in the neighborhood likes it when you blast. And I live in the country, so everybody shoots. Yeah. But nobody is out there like just emptying magazines and shit. Everybody's like, it's like range shoots, like boom, wait 10 seconds. Boom, like that kind of shooting. Yeah. So I can go out there and do that, but in here I can get all my reps. Yeah. But practice is like, are guns existentially important here? Yes, they are. But we have a problem in our community of like, people are on the internet too much. They're super introverted, but they're really into guns and they're really afraid of Trump. And they're like, Trump and I have a gun. But yeah, you're in the fucking computer 8 hours a day. You're not dry firing. Like, how are you going to save a life with just having a gun? I just want people to get out more or dry fire more. Yeah. Right. Right. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. It's also just good to get out more.
Yeah. And hang out with friends. Like you guys, you have some friends you can get out there with. And I'm glad you discovered the fun part of it. Well, that's because guns are fun.
Yes, they're lethal. That's the part they don't tell you.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it's also okay. It's okay to have fun with them. It's okay to like them. Yeah. It's okay. You can like them. Yeah. You can have fun with them.
As long as you're being responsible and ethical.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And, we all do it now. Like liberals own guns too. It's over. We know that now. Like that was cool for like 5-10 years. We were like, hey, we're liberals and we do it too. Yeah. Everybody knows now. We're all over the country. There's thousands and thousands of us. It's cool, but now we got to kind of like embrace it and have fun with it. Yeah. Get out there, do the serious stuff and then do the fun shit. Yeah. Have you gotten into any, do you get the bug for like collecting or buying new guns ever? Or are you not really into that part of it?
I have been. So when I started off, I was buying a ton of stuff and kind of shopping and changing a lot. Yes. So I think probably out of the first 7 guns that I bought, I probably still only have 2. And one of them I never shoot anymore and just might sell it. And then kind of slowed down. And then just with the laws changing in Washington, I had the great panic buying spree of 2022.
So you have like all kinds of magazines and shit stacked up.
I probably have 3 times as many magazines as I would own if I lived in a red state. I often tell people that I probably would never have developed any interest whatsoever in semi-automatic rifles if I lived in a red state. I had no interest, and then at some point I saw the writing on the wall, and it's like, well, the government's probably going to tell me I can't have one of these at some point, so I'm just going to get one while I can.
And any road will take you there, man. Any way to get there.
Yeah. So I got a few of those things. Now it's like I don't need anything. I live in the city. I don't hunt. There's not. I'm just a hobbyist at this point. But yeah. So before the ban hammer dropped in Washington, I did some brainstorming on. Okay, what are some pistols that I might be interested in getting in the future? I kind of accepted, okay, I'm just, any long gun is just going to be AR platform. But yeah, it's okay. What are some pistols that I might be interested in getting in the future? And I bought a bunch of magazines for guns that I didn't have. And so now I'm actually trying to get things so I can use it with. So I got so I bought a bunch of CZ Scorpion mags, and then bought a CZ Scorpion shortly before they banned assault weapons here.
I own one and have many of those magazines, and it's one of my favorite.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite guns.
But yeah, any PCC where the magazine and with the mag well outside of the grip, is an assault weapon in Washington now. So yeah, it's a little crazy. And then I got a couple, got a bunch of Walther mags, so I got a PDP, but then I bought a bunch of 2011 mags, and so now I just hit the big 5.0 a couple weeks ago, and decided that I'm gonna get myself an exorbitantly priced midlife crisis 2011.
Nice.
So that's where I am now.
Which ones are you considering?
I'm getting a Venom Custom.
Okay. This, like, the 2011, just the glass breaky, beautiful trigger. Like, there's so many of them that I slobber over. And I have that. I don't have much on my list anymore, but 2011 is definitely on the list.
Yeah.
It just looks like everybody that shoots the high-end ones are like, holy shit, is this the gun?
Yeah.
In terms of like point and shoot accuracy and the feel on the trigger and all that stuff. So
yeah,
it's on my list.
Yeah. There's, it's kind of all the stuff that's fun about shooting a 1911, but you get 20 rounds instead of 8. So.
Yeah. Right on. That's awesome, man. Well, we're at about an hour and 4 minutes. You said about an hour and 10 was going to be kind of your limit. Do you have anything else that you wanted to say today for the community that listens, the part of the community that listens to the Liberal Gun Owners Lens podcast? Any thoughts about the future or shooting or?
Yeah, I think I think with time, I'm hoping just in general as a society that we kind of figure out a way to just start having better conversations about this sort of thing. And there are issues I see from both sides that are problematic. And, I kind of, especially from someone who still, I still have a foot in both worlds. Having been very much on the anti-gun side of things and, certainly having, people in my immediate community who are not interested in that either. But it's, on one hand, there are just, there are the realities of living in America. People talk about, well, they did this in Australia and it worked. But, having a society that is virtually gunless, certainly compared to this one, and then banning guns to keep that society gunless, is probably going to do a lot more than a society where we already have more guns than people. That's over. You're not going to pass a law and get rid of that. And it's so ingrained and so common at this point that even if you were going to pass a law, people aren't going to comply. And most of the people who aren't going to comply are people who wouldn't otherwise be doing anything wrong. And so what are you really accomplishing with that? What do they say, safety with guns as opposed to safety from guns. And there are other, there are other kind of deeper societal issues, that play a role in that. And I also think I also can't help but think to some degree that a lot of people are just too online.
Oh, dude.
But then on the other side, you get the, you get the people who, thoughts and prayers and, shall not be infringed. If that's going to be your mantra, then, those people are just ceding the entire conversation on public safety to ban proponents. And I think that that's something that I wish more of the mainstream gun community would take a lead on, beyond kind of the usual, law and order talking points or, saying that everybody needs to arm themselves when that's not for everybody. Like you said, people should have that choice. And if somebody, I don't want to live in a society where I don't feel that I can't rationally choose to not be armed.
Yes.
You should have that choice and still feel like you can be safe the majority of the time where you are.